What's good, y'all? It's your boy JHL Hoops back with another video, and today I'm gonna be grading every NBA team and their performance throughout trade deadline. So let's get straight into it. I'm gonna start off with the Hawks, and I'm giving them a C just because direction-wise, I see what they're trying to do. They're trying to get rid of their valuable pieces to rebuild, but I think the return, the value they got out of these pieces, like DeAndre Hunter was the big part. And they got back Karis LeVert, they got back George Niang, they got back a few picks, I believe. And honestly, I was a bit underwhelmed by the package back. And I don't know, it felt underwhelming for Atlanta. And it feels like Trey Young, tenured with the Hawks, is coming to an end soon. So who knows? I gave them a C. And honestly, we'll see what's going to happen with the Hawks throughout the season. Jalen Johnson's out, so they can't really contend for a playoff spot, or maybe they'll try the play in, but at the end of the day, whatever result they get, it's not going to be the greatest result ever. So I'm giving them a C. It's unfortunate. Maybe they would have been bigger buyers if Jalen Johnson was healthy, but that's just the way the NBA is. Sometimes guys get injured, and you can't do anything about it. Next, I got Boston with a B. They didn't have to do anything. They just got rid of Jaden Springer. Honestly, it was only for luxury tax purposes. One of the most expensive teams in the NBA. It makes complete sense. The return they got back was basically nothing. They're not. It was top 55 second round picks. So really, not much for that. Next, I have the Nets. Getting rid of Schroeder and Dorian Finney-Smith. That was good. That was They needed to do that because they're somewhat valuable right now. But it's just the guys they kept. Now Ben Simmons is on the buyout market, so they probably just couldn't get good value out of Ben Simmons, which makes sense. He's on a terrible, or he was on a terrible contract until he signed with the Clippers. And Cam Johnson, he was definitely a valuable piece. I do believe they have him for next season as well, so maybe they'll trade him in the summer or next trade deadline. Um, but right now, you can tell the reason I give them a B minus was just because they almost they basically tried to, how do I say this? They tried to sell as much as possible, but honestly, the amount of selling they do right now wouldn't really matter because they'll still be the bad Nets team that we know. So it didn't really hurt them that they didn't trade their valuable pieces, but I think it was necessary to do, or it's going to be necessary eventually because you don't want them to, get injured, or you know something horrific to happen to these somewhat valuable players right now. So I've given them a B minus. Next, I have Charlotte. The Mark Williams trade got rescinded, so he's back on the Hornets. But really, it was just a bunch of low risk, high rewards, just a bunch of random second round picks, and I believe they got. Let's see, they got. Um, oh yeah, Yusuf Nurkic. So um, now Nurkic, I don't think he's gonna be a valuable asset for them to contend, but I think they just took it just because of the picks and things like that. Um, and yeah, honestly, wasn't the most eventful trade deadline for them now that Dot Connect and Cam Reddish are gone from, or are back on with LA now. So yeah, it was really just a low risk, high reward type of situation, and really they just got a few small valuable picks, which who knows, maybe can turn out into the Nikola Jokic's or the Draymond Greens or whatnot. Next, I have Chicago with a C minus. Very similar to Atlanta. The reason I gave them a C minus over a C is just because I felt like Zach Levine was a lot more valuable than what they got out. They did. I don't think they got a single pick out of Zach Levine, which is kind of insane. So, but I understand what's happening. They're just trying to go into the rebuild as quickly as possible, not waste time. And also one more thing, Vucevic is still on the team, and he was definitely valuable. He's having a great season, so I'm surprised they didn't trade him. But oh well, it happens. Next, I have the Cavs. I gave them an A. they didn't have to do much, but they got DeAndre Hunter, which was an excellent pickup. Um, so they have a bit more size and slightly more scoring on the perimeter. So love the pickup. Obviously, they had to get rid of George Niang and Karis LeVert, but they're not as valuable as DeAndre Hunter. I do believe he's injured right now, so we'll see with that. But honestly, the Cavs right now, they're just gonna figure out what's gonna happen this playoffs or this year in the playoffs, and then we can look into the offseason if they're champions or not. Let's see. Okay, do we need to get these pieces or that pieces? So they didn't have to, it was good for them to not do too much. So I give them an A. Um, Dallas, I've talked about Dallas a bunch. I've given them a Z minus. That's not even a real grade. I'm gonna move on from them. Denver, I've given them a B just because I think I'm a bigger Denver believer than most people. They haven't had the greatest season, but I do think that the time to make moves should be the off season and not right now because they've been playing basically back to normal as of lately. But if they're in midst of another championship window, then we have to start talking. Maybe Jokic needs a new someone, or they need a new duo or trio or whatever in Denver. So we'll see with Denver. I saw a lot of people talk about Michael Porter Jr. and uh, Jamal Murray and things like that, but honestly, they're playing fine right now. So I'm not really worried. It's really just going to be about their performance in the playoffs, and hopefully they get to a championship or maybe like a conference finals or even a finals. So yeah, a B for them. Next, I have Detroit with a B plus. They basically got a lot of great value for them. If I just scroll down to see their yeah, right here, yeah, they got a few veteran guys and only had to give up one pick. So really, it didn't really hurt them that much that they got guys like Josh Richardson and KJ Martin and Lindy Waters the third and Dennis Schroeder and two picks. So honestly, pretty good for them. Really, they're just gonna try to contend for a play-in. They're a young team, so hey, they'll take what they can get. Next, I have the Warriors. I gave them a B minus, and they did need to make a move. Honestly, I'm more of the believer that they need to get into the rebuilding phase. But if we're talking about what they're trying to do, I think they did pretty good. Jimmy Butler's obviously an all-star and he's an excellent playoff performer, so they got great value out of him. They traded pretty big pieces, but they didn't give up too many picks. So I'm on the fence with it. It's good and bad, um, but we'll just see what happens. I'm more of a guy that wants Curry gone and Draymond. I just want them to go to zero because I think their championship window's pretty much done. Um, Next, I have the Rockets. I don't believe they made any trades, but yeah, or no, they got Jane Springer and Cody Zeller, and they only gave up one pick, which is top 55 protected. So that pick's probably going to be useless, or they're just going to keep it. So I really didn't have to do much. Really, this is a year to figure out. They're still young, so they can just figure out, okay, what do we need after when when they make the playoffs? Assuming they make the playoffs, what do they need when uh who, who knows what happens, like if they lose in the first round, if they lose in conference finals, we'll see their flaws and we're gonna build off of that. That's basically what Houston needs to do. So I'm not mad at them for basically doing almost little to nothing. So next I have Indiana with a B minus, and they're in a weird phase because they have a lot of young guys. Um, but it's just about what does the team need, and honestly, really, they just need to develop their guys to their fullest potential, and then we'll see. Okay, we don't need a Nemhart or we don't need a Benedict Mather. I mean, I'm just throwing out examples. I'm not saying they don't need it. Obviously, they're valuable. They're nice players and things like that. But we'll see in time, like, okay, they have a flaw with the regard player or the forward player or whatever. Because generally speaking, that team I think is well rounded. It's just there's not that one central piece that's like the threat in the playoffs or things like that. So I'm just giving them a B minus. I'm not too worried about them. I don't really think they're contending for a championship, but honestly, I couldn't. they're still pretty young, so I'm not too worried about them. Next, I have the Clippers with a B minus. They only got Bogey, who's the only legit player that they got. Everyone else, if I just look, yeah, Drew Eubanks. I guess he could be in the rotation. Patty Mills, sure, I guess. A few second round picks, which is fine, but I mean, at least they got rid of. Honestly, I'm more happy that they got rid of PJ Tucker. Um, they had to get. They also got rid of Mo Bamba, which I guess he wasn't really getting minutes, so that's fine. And but honestly, the Clippers are in a weird position because I feel like I always fall for the fake contender comeback by the Clippers because they have Kawhi, a excellent player, especially in the playoffs. So I'm probably gonna fall for dark horse contenders. Um, so yeah, but we'll see with that. Um, Next, I have Lakers A plus. Even though the Mark Williams trade got resent, getting Luca, you get an automatic A plus for basically, I mean not nothing, but for a pretty light price. So move on with that. Next, I have Memphis with a B, and really all their moves were designed so that they could extend Jaren Jackson Jr. They got rid of Marcus Smart, and they got rid of who else? I believe they got rid of um, Jake LaRavia, who's on the Kings now, and things like that. So yeah, really, it was just a salary thing, and I think it was the right thing to do just because they do need to pay Jaren Jackson Jr. So uh, a B it is. Next, I have Miami with a B plus, and honestly, I'm more surprised with the value they got out of Butler because they didn't go out for picks; they went out for players. I think Andrew Wiggins fits in very well. Who else they get? They got they picked up Davion Mitchell from trading away PJ Tucker. Um, so yeah, I'm pretty happy with the return. Miami's still in the playoff spot, so we'll see or they're still in the top six or top eight or whatever. So we'll see for what Miami is trying to do. I think they did a pretty good job, and honestly, for Jimmy Butler, um, they had to get rid of him, and I think they got decent value out of the situation. So yeah. Next, I have Milwaukee with a B minus, and it's more so just because I felt like the value for some of the players they traded was pretty underwhelming, and also the return they got. Like, I understand why they got Kyle Kuzma for Chris because Kyle Kuzma he does have great value, but also you're trying to play for now, and Kyle Kuzma has played pretty bad on Washington. He's had good season previously, but this year in Washington he hasn't been playing the best. So I'm not really I'm not really sure what to think of their um, trade acquisitions. But let's be honest, whatever trade they made, it wouldn't really change how much of a contender they are or aren't unless they went out to get an all-star or something like that. So, yeah. Next, I got Minnesota with a C, and they didn't make any moves, but that's really because they're trapped. Like, they can't do anything. They have guys like Randall, who, let's be honest, no one really wants them. They have a guy like Gobert who's on a massive contract. So I mean, really, all they can do is ride it out for now, and then hope for the best in the future. Next, I have the Pelicans at a C minus. Uh, they didn't really get that much good value. They got one first round pick at least. It's not the most valuable thing, but oh well. They got rid of Brandon Ingram. Maybe like a few months ago, he would have been a lot more valuable before the season started, but um, at least they got a pick and also a second round pick. And I also do believe they traded, if I just scroll down, yeah, they traded Daniel Tice to OKC, um, which is fine, I guess. It's not really, that wasn't really their big concern, so I'm not worried about that. But really, the big piece was Brandon Ingram. But it was a necessary thing because you can tell, if you listen to some of the Ingram stuff, he was definitely wanting out or just wanted a new situation. So, yeah, C minus. Uh, Next we have the Knicks, and I gave them a B. Um, Really didn't have to force anything. I think their team is very good as it is, so I'm happy with that. Same goes for OKC. They only got Daniel Tice. That's a B for me. Do what makes you happy, and as long as you're playing good, don't worry about it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Next, I have Orlando. I also give them a B. They didn't. I don't believe they made any move or made anything significant. Yeah, they didn't make any moves. So they they're a young team. So let's just ride it out. Let's see what you need. Let's try to develop guys, and then we'll figure out. Oh, maybe we need more size, or we need, you know, so on and so forth. Next, I have Philly with a C. Really, they're just ready to blow it up. Um, the inevitable is coming. Sixers, your time is up. That's all I'm saying. Uh, Next, I have the Suns with a C. They got rid of problem number two, which was Yusuf Nurkic. They have problem number one, which is Bradley Beal. So, I mean, they're also kind of the Minnesota situation where they're trapped with Beal. At least they got rid of uh, Yusuf Nurkic, so that's good. But at least they got Nick Richards and Bol Bol, I guess, because he's been playing pretty great for the last two games. So good for Bol Bol, good for the Suns. Similar to the Sixers, the inevitable is coming. Next, I have a C plus for Portland. Um, they didn't make any moves, I don't believe. So yeah, they didn't make any moves, and they had guys like Grant and Robert Williams. Maybe they were banking on their win streak to up their value up, but honestly, um, I think it was time to make the trades now. While they still have pretty good value with these players, so but honestly, they're a pretty bad team anyway, so it wouldn't really have affected them, even though they've been on the win streak. But I do think they're gonna come back down, or if they don't ever come back down, then maybe I'll put the grade down. Next, I have Sacramento with a B minus, and that's really just because I think I'm more of a believer in Zach LaVine and the guys they brought in. So um, honestly, Sacramento, I've talked a little bit about them previously. I do think getting Zach LaVine was a good thing. Obviously, losing De'Aaron Fox, that definitely hurt, but at least they got a guy like Zach LaVine who can still push them where they want to go. I'm not saying they'll go to the promised lands and things like that, but for what they wanted to do, I think they basically got what they needed, close enough at least. Uh, Next, I have the Raptors with a B plus. I'm very happy with Ingram going there, and he's basically injured for most of the season, so they can still tank. And also, guys like RJ's injured, so yeah, honestly, they get a 20 points per game scorer, another forward. Uh, well, the only downside of it would be Grady Dick moving to the bench, even though he's having a great year. But maybe he can have the Norman Powell role where he's off the bench and scoring like 10 points per game or whatever. Next, I have Utah with an A minus. They just got a bunch of picks. That's Danny Ainge. That's pretty good of them. So, yeah. And last but not least, Washington A minus. Got rid of Kyle Kuzma. Couldn't ask for more. And honestly, they're hunting for Cooper Flag. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, thank you for watching, and see y'all in the next video.